Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a SwordCraft deck. This one in particular is a Machina sword. It is focusing of course on follower spam and then finishing off with a Blazing Lion Admiral to boost potential boards that Latherman or the other Machina cards can produce. So the Machina cards are quite good in this, especially Ironforged Hero, actually a really solid card and does a really nice job. We are running a couple of Angelic Smite to deal with things like Elena, although I have seen a drop off in Elena lately, which is no big surprise. Obviously Vengeance Blood has picked up a little bit, but overall this deck isn't super competitive, but definitely a really solid one, and I quite enjoyed playing it, so we're going to get right into it and check it out. So the first match for this video is against Shadowcraft. SwordCraft versus Shadow is usually pretty evenly matched overall in the typical spam ability of their decks, and honestly going up against Shadowcraft with this deck in particular tends to favour Sword a little bit from my experience so far, but obviously it does depend on how easily you can brick, because this deck does have a slight bricking issue. You can end up with all high drops and no way to get anything low out, which can be a problem. Of course that's not the be all and end all, there are definitely options, but if you do end up in that situation you are pretty screwed. So I do like the turn 1 play getting out, well turn 2 play, sorry, getting out the couple of bots. Definitely a really solid option to go for when I'm looking to counter Shadow. Cyber Cannoneer is usually a good turn 4 play and either a good turn 3 play when you're looking for good setup. It does line up a really nice set of plays to go forward and push board space while dealing with any potential threats that Shadow of course could spam the board with. While also setting up a very nice Techno Lord. So we're actually going to be having a free chance for this Cyber Cannoneer with a nice little Assembly Droid Evo getting us 3 damage to face, just off that with 1 from the extra. Yeah, it's a pretty comfortable bit of damage we've dealt. Phantasmal Core does lead me to believe this is Hades' Shadow. In particular, Path to Purgatory of course, that's what Hades is used for after all. We've got a very good board so far. With a little bit of buffing and stuff, we could be even better off. So the Aether play it is. Gives us a slightly stronger board to work with, and we get to deal some damage to face. With just 10 health left, we are pushing a very quick game. It's really going to come down to if they can drag us out, and honestly, Father of Purgatory there, Hades, definitely wiping us out. Not a good sign. Definitely going to slow us down, so all I can do now is try and develop a bigger board again. I also don't mind this combination of cards. Getting massive amounts of ward very easily off those is always good. So another Hades, so double in a row is definitely crippling, especially when we're only 1 off lethal. So we're definitely going to be setting up the long game while trying to go at least a little bit wide to buy us some more time. So this means that if they do go for Hades, they actually won't immediately kill us, which is good. So they are forced to go for something else to start with, and that was actually the perfect way to lower our followers down so Hades could take them out. A little disappointed. Really didn't want to see that happen. At least they can go for Honorable Knight. We are going to die next turn though if they manage to get 10 more shadows, which was definitely going to be a possibility here, but if they couldn't, we could pretty much guaranteed lethal at this point. Although maybe not quite, since of course we are missing a way to get this to go off easily. But with this Evo at least, it is going to get us the 1 drops we need, so that was definitely going to work out in the end, luckily. We had plenty of Machina cards to work with. The Machina cards did a wonderful job picking off the opponent. Next up, we are playing against Forest. Forest can be a little trickier sometimes, just because they actually have a fairly solid early game and good removal structure, so you really do need to keep the pressure on. So I do like to aim for things like Hoverboard Mercenary here, which are very good early turns for the deck. Especially when you can usually set up 2, 3, and 4 very quickly with that. The only real difficulty is definitely going to be getting over Okamis. They're usually the problem cards to deal with when you're versing Forest, so if we can deal with those, we should be fine, but no guarantees. So, mirroring the Hoverboard Mercenary play that our opponent threw down as well, It's really probably the best way to go about it. The guard play, getting a nice draw. Definitely an interesting one for us to try and get around now, since we don't really have any way to clear it out. So all I did was aim for the either draw play. Looking for the turn 4 play though, Stampeding Fortress should be the better one to go for if I can. Provided of course this board isn't too much of an issue, but it does look like it might be a little problematic to deal with. I don't know if there's anything else in our hand though that would be actually worthwhile anyway, so it looks like that's definitely the best play. Stampeding Fortress is actually an extremely solid card for a deck like this. It's got super good swarm ability, it can get a free evo out of it, and it's very easy to play. Robotic Bagworm, not a problem right this second. Aria Whirlwind's definitely bad. This is the removal that I didn't want to see from our opponent. Mecha Claw Elf, 3/3 Storm. Going to avoid that completely as much as I can with Angelic Smite. May not have been the right choice to use it on that, but honestly I just really wanted to get rid of it. But I didn't want to overextend in this turn. I'm kind of glad I didn't. I did let them get a half decent chance here, but we've got plenty of cards now that we can deal with this. Especially since we can go for the Stampeding play and combo here for massive amounts of rush. It should allow us to both have a very developed board and take out most of our opponent's cards without losing too much of our own, so it's actually a pretty decent combination there. It's just a matter of getting them out early enough. Peerless Shot. That's really the only card that was going to be a problem here. Peerless Shot was a really good play. Miracle of Love, not so much an issue. Getting a ward really isn't a problem for us. So I'd go for the Technolod play since we already have another one in our hand and it was guaranteed to wipe. It also let me at least set up a little bit of damage here, and I did decide to hold on to the Evo for the Latham play next turn, since turn 8 Latham with an Evo is actually an extremely solid way to set up, and is actually going to let us take all this out no problem. Double Piercing Shot though was definitely not what I wanted to see, so we are going to lose the majority of our board here. Definitely was not favouring us that time, at least. At least we now can take out the Latham Honourable Knight, clear the 5/3, get rid of the 2/2, and still have 1 damage face. So we're going to do a fairly decent job of this. As long as it's all ordered correctly, which of course it is. So we're the 10-4 and a 1-1 on board. Of this. Dual Fencer, it's a pretty decent one, along with the Cynthia. Forest players definitely knowing what they're doing right now. I actually wouldn't mind playing this deck. If I can find this deck list the opponent used, I may cover it. It's definitely an interesting one. Being a Machina-focused Forest. Most of them so far have been either Roach-focused decks or full-on Okami-focused decks. But this one's just very different, which is nice to see. So we're going to get a chance to stock the board up. I did go a little too hard though. I probably shouldn't have went for the Mech Wing, but since I couldn't actually go for the Admiral play, since I couldn't attack with it yet, I guess it was the best thing I could do here. And there is the Okami, so they are still running it even in this variation of deck, which does make sense. It's an extremely good card with lots of value. So we are now forced to deal with this as best we can. Fortunately for us, Blazing Light Admiral is coming out of our deck again, and so far we still have another one in our deck, so we're going to have at least one more turn. And our Ivory Sword will actually take out the 4/5 Okami very easily, so we can go for face. Plus, why not throw just that tad little bit of healing down, protecting us from any potential burst. Just in case they go for something too big, of course. So Carbuncle, not too big a problem right now. Definitely has become a good card compared to when it first launched and was hardly used. It's definitely in the end of last expansion, start of this expansion, really been showing off itself quite well. Another Okami, so this should be number 3 I think on the Okamis. I think it is, if my memory serves. That means once we take this one out, that should be most of their potential burst done. And Stampeding Fortress is going to be perfect, even if we don't get full use for this card. Now, I definitely made the mistake there of using Stampeding Fortress in that way. I actually should have used the 1/1s to take it out, then actually worked from that. I could have definitely done better, although we did end up with lethal no matter what anyway, so I really probably should have just paid attention to that part first, which, of course, wins us the game. So while not being the most competitive deck out there, this deck is definitely pretty enjoyable, and it's got a nice structure to it. I definitely want to see some more kind of cards come into a deck like this and make it work even better and smoother. Trying avoiding, of course, the high cost end of the deck when you're in your early game. The only real card you'd want out of any of your high cost cards in the early game, I guess, would be the Mech Angel and maybe the Latham, but they're really it. Everything else here, the top end, really awkward to play early game. You've got so many 3 and 4 drops as well here, so that's taking up a large chunk of your deck. Really, the only early game cards you've got are definitely really the Robo Goblin, the Hoverboard, and maybe the Rapier Master. I don't mind playing that on turn 1, 2, and 3 sort of positions. By the time I get to 4 though, I'd much rather be playing something like Cyber Cannoneer, and even Aether for 3 is better, so it does feel a little clunky sometimes, and that's really the only downfall for it. Otherwise, it's still quite a good deck, a lot of fun to play, and does okay in the most current meta. So if you guys did enjoy this video, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.